Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Dr. Cole Galloway. He's a recovering academic working in social justice and disability, primarily with babies, as the founder at Go Baby Go. I have Kierra Caissey, a Utica College graduate with a degree in psychology and a minor in healthcare ethics. She is a residential counselor at Open Sky Community Services and a soccer coach at FC Stars. And I have Justin Dorsey. He's the lead HR consultant at Employer Flexible with a passion for people. The question, does too much empathy in the workplace kill accountability? Justin, kick us off.
Well, it's funny because I've been thinking about this topic quite a bit. We can loosely define people into two big, very broad categories of being relationship oriented or maybe more task oriented. And so from an empathy standpoint, the relationship people don't want to talk about tasks until you pour into the relationship. They want to feel safe there. And the task people, let's get the tasks taken care of first before we ever talk empathy or we talk about relationships. So it's kind of this dividing point. But I'll say, just from my own personal experience, I had a leader one time who knew from an empathy standpoint, I was dealing with some stuff in my personal life that was really distracting me. And the fact that he came in, he leaned into that, acknowledged it, acknowledged the pain I was going through, but also said, well, we do need certain things from you in terms of your position at work. And I'll never forget how impactful that moment was, because it was just a perfect balance of empathy and accountability.
Nice. Justin, I think that's a great story. I also think working in human services and working in like the coaching atmosphere, I think so much of what that person-centered approach calls for is empathy, especially in my field. But with the same vein, I think accountability is everything. So I would actually argue that sympathy kills accountability way before empathy ever could. Because I think empathy allows us to understand the people that we're working with, working for, and trying to serve. And when we understand where people are coming from, we understand their experiences, and we build that relationship, I think it really opens the door for us to empower them to be accountable for themselves and in a way that they can understand. Coddling and sympathy are great, but not in the workplace and not in realms where we need to be accountable for improvement and reaching goals.
Yeah, when I think of accountability, I think of tasks and sort of outcome and not so much process sometimes. I think of empathy in a whole bag of stuff that has to do with process. I happen to work both with humans and with robots, and I am in meetings where I'm feeling like, which is this? I thought this was a human meeting, and these are people acting like robots. You can train a robot to do a lot of things, but you can't really train a robot to have self-awareness, hopefully not yet. The empathy, the way I do as a boss is people know that the empathy is part of that process. But as Justin said, we need you to do things. And that's accountability, but actually we need you to be whole. And that's that empathy. And I don't know what place sympathy has. That was such a great sort of defining line you just did, sympathy and empathy. I don't think necessarily of sympathy. I think of something much deeper and understanding where you're coming from. And as Justin has, I have benefited from people understanding you're going through a very tough time. For the next 6 months, we're going to let you back off on this if you'll do this in that following 6 months. And it was like, it didn't feel like accountability. It felt like empathy. But empathy and accountability going together, we need you. We need the best of you. I think those things will break down, but that empathy versus sympathy thing I'm going to think about because it's really interesting.
I've been on the other side of this coin where I had a boss say to me, leave your personal life at the door. We don't want any part of it here. We expect XYZ from you. And the thing that was frustrating to me about that particular interaction is even at 50%, I was still the highest producer in that department. But they were hounding me about the fact that I wasn't more as I had been. And I feel like that old school accountability of sit down, shut up, and do your job is why I get comments sometimes on these conversations that say, if you have too much empathy, you can't possibly hold someone accountable.
From a talent acquisition standpoint, I'm seeing a lot of our clients afraid to hold people accountable right now because they cannot replace them. So it's almost like you can honestly take empathy so far and make it become a fear factor where you don't want to hold people accountable for fear of pushing them out the door because they do have other options. They do have recruiters calling them. So it's still a very tough talent market out there to balance these two things.
And I think that two really powerful points were made by both you, Justin, and Robyn. And I was thinking as well with Dr. Galloway's, and what he said was, I think the accountability really starts with being able to admit that you need support in the first place. Like, I don't think we can overlook the fact that the accountability door is already open by me coming to you and saying, hey, I have these things going on. I don't want them to impact my work and my ability to perform. Where do we go from here? And that's solution-focused thinking. And that puts the accountability on the person who needs to be accountable. But I'm looking for that humility and empathy from my team. And I think where we run into issues, just like you were saying, Justin, is when we've taken it too far. But I think that that's a slippery slope to a certain degree by that point, because I think we've run into sympathy. I'm afraid to do my job of holding you accountable because I feel so badly for you now, which doesn't do anyone a single favor in the workplace on either side of that relationship.
I do see how it could turn into fear, though, that people will leave if you hold them too accountable. I think that's a whole different question. Cole, you were going to say something a minute ago.
I was just two quick things. One is that 1950s style Mad Men. I think that boss that's saying leave your baggage at the door is showing their cards of back when a time when everybody, I'm going to be widely sweeping, your boss and those workers did have a lot of Venn diagram overlap. White, straight males of a certain flavor. The workplace is fundamentally different now. You do not know your worker unless you want to get into a relationship, understand them. And boy, the workplace where a worker is coming to leadership and saying, hey, I've got impending doom here. Okay, that's look to HR in that organization and you've got a happy Justin. Because somebody in the leadership or somewhere, the culture has built up and changed the leadership somehow. That's the place that will retain workers. But I can just feel the people listening going, I could not tell my boss that I've got something coming up. In academics and research, I've been asked by other professors, my graduate student's getting pregnant. I'm really irritated. Should I tell her about it? I work in a baby lab. And they came to me and I'm like, no, you have a little crib off in the corner and you get yourself some love every second you can. And they were shocked. They were like, well, how dare you have a kid when you're a graduate student? And that was a little shocking to me.
I feel like in the role that I have, the work that I do as a high performance psychologist, my job is half being nurturing and kind and supportive and empathetic, and half get your butt in gear and let's figure it out. And I feel like a lot of people don't do a good job with that balance of understanding you can be super kind and nice and still tell the truth. That's super effective.
Yeah. Well, it's you earn the right to say, I care enough about you to not leave you where you're at.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, our other two speakers here have backgrounds to understand how to talk to people that are in stress. And if a listener doesn't have, go listen to Brene Brown or go look at the metaphors of not jumping in a hole with a person, because sympathy is the reaction. And you don't really want sympathy. You want to understand that if you jump in that hole with the person, you can't help them out. And I mean, Robyn, it's easy to see how you can do that. You build relationships first. And so when you say, Cole, I know where your butt lives and it needs to get going. Well, you know where my butt lives. That's where you can kick it. But if you hadn't taken a chance to understand who I am, then you don't know where I'm coming from.
And I also have permission. Like I have that relationship with my clients. They hire me to do that. And I feel like sometimes when people want to hold people accountable, they don't have the relationship, the contract, the, okay, yes, come to me and help me get this done. And that's what I think where people make mistakes too, is you don't have the relationship with me to tell me that, go away.
Right. Doesn't that feel great for someone? You almost want to tell them, like, I don't know you well enough for you to talk to me like that.
I've said that to people, especially financial people, like who reach out to me and are like, hey, I would love to look at your finances and give you a second opinion. I'm like, I don't know you from Adam. You do not know me well enough to ask me to open my books to you. Thank you for playing. Well, y'all, that
Okay.
is our 10 minutes. I'm going to cut us off there. Thank you so much. And I look forward to
right.
speaking to you all very soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.